Prime Minister Narendra Modi unexpectedly agreed to the protesters' key demand months ago, but the country's agriculture system continues to have serious difficulties. India's farmers said on Thursday that their over-a-year-long strike, which forced one of the country's most prominent leaders into a rare retreat, was coming to an end. Stick around to find out everything you need to know about the Indian farming protest that has finally come to a close. Indian farmers are finally able to end their year-long protest. Here's why. This is a proof of unity, Mr. Singh, age 23, remarked as the news came in, looking to put over a group of farmers dancing to Punjabi sounds and others treating themselves to spoonfuls of milky rice pudding. India's farmers announced on Thursday that they were ending their action more than a year after they laid siege outside New Delhi in response to farm laws that they feared would destroy their livelihoods after a sustained protest that forced one of the country's most powerful leaders into a rare retreat. Last month, Prime Minister Narendra Modi started the country by announcing that his government will revoke 3 laws approved in September 2020 in an effort to reform the country's ailing agriculture industry. He urged the farmers to return home at the moment, but they refused, resolving to wait until the laws were properly repealed. Last Thursday, Parliament accomplished this by passing the repeal without debate. Farmers had other requests, which they said Mr. Modi's government had promised to examine and settle, at least in principle, on Thursday, including a statewide law guaranteeing minimum crop prices and the removal of tens of thousands of charges filed against demonstrators. They were also demanding compensation for the families of those who died as a result of exposure to excessive temperatures, heart attacks, and COVID-19 during the tough conditions of a year of protests. The initiative may have succeeded in drawing attention to the desperation on India's fields, but experts say the battle is only half won. India's agriculture system has serious flaws, incentivizing farmers to cultivate too much of the incorrect kinds of crops. Both sides wholeheartedly agree that something needs to be done. So where did this protest stem from? Let's break this down. A protest is a remark or action that shows displeasure or opposition to someone or something in its most basic form. Protesting, both violent and nonviolent, has a lengthy history that dates back almost as far as humanity itself. Since then, movements have pushed for a change on a variety of causes, including religious, like Martin Luther's 95 Theses, political, like the Boston Tea Party and suffragette movements, racial, the civil rights movement, and quality of life, the miners' strike. The world's attention was attracted to America earlier this summer when George Floyd's tragic death, all caused by the police, sparked Black Lives Matter protests. Over 500,000 protesters took to the streets in 550 locations around the country at its peak, perhaps making it the country's largest movement in history. Today, the world is watching even larger protests in India, which could be the largest in human history. Since August, an estimated 200 million Indians have taken part in protest against proposed legislation that will harm farmers, who account for a significant portion of the country's labor. Despite the fact that the big uprising has dominated life in India and headlines across Asia, few people outside that bubble are aware of what's been going on, the significance of the protest, or the context that has led to the massive event. Let's go to the beginning. To understand everything that is going on, we need to go all the way back to 1943 and the Bengal famine to truly comprehend the current difficulties in India. The famine, which was caused by humans, killed an estimated 3 to 4 million people, drove many farmers to sell their land, and left the country dependent on foreign food for decades. Shortly after achieving food security, India began taking precautions to avoid another large-scale famine. The government began expanding the quantity of land that may be used for agriculture in 1947. They gave financial assistance in some circumstances to clear and ready fields so that farmers could produce crops more easily. India did not truly begin to defend itself against future large-scale famines until 1967, when the Green Revolution began. The continuation of farmland expansion, double cropping, which includes 2 growing seasons per year, and necessitated massive government-funded irrigation projects and the discovery of new high-yield seed varieties were the 3 essential aspects of this revolution. As the agricultural business grew and prospered, India developed the Agricultural Produce Market Committee, or APMC, which aimed to protect farmers from exploitation, ensure that prices did not reach unduly elevated levels, and ensure that farmers were paid for their commodities on time. Farmers were only allowed to sell their harvests in authorized market yards and at designated auctions in exchange for this aid. By 2006, local farmers were voicing their dissatisfaction with the APMC. They said that market facilities couldn't keep up with the additional volume of produce they were growing. When they were unable to sell their harvests in the official market yards or at auction, they turned to illegal middlemen and were frequently exploited. appointed. Narendra Modi became India's current prime minister in 2014. He often stated his intention to modernize and industrialize India in all areas, including agriculture, during his 2014 and 2019 campaigns. Modi has made various promises about the fortunes of farmers and agricultural laborers since being in government, including vowing to double their wages. Economists predicted that India would face its worst recession in recent history in August 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic was blamed for a lot of it, but farmers who couldn't sell their goods at the government-shuttered wholesale marketplaces were especially worried. They believed that their existing employment was already in jeopardy and that in a decreasing economy, no other careers would emerge. All of this culminates in September 2020 when Prime Minister Modi signed the Farmers' Produce Trading Commission Act, according to the government, dissolving the APMC and enabling farmers to sell their harvest to anyone for any price gives farmers more independence. Farmers in the country disagree, claiming that it makes them more vulnerable than ever because it means major corporations can drive down the cost of specific crops. Next, protesting begins. Farmers around the country voiced their dissatisfaction with the new legislation by burning their fields before any official marches began heading towards Delhi. Normally, the farmers would hand clear any leftover residue on their field, but in early November 2020, in retaliation to the Farmers' Produce Trading Commission Act, along with another government law that would prosecute farmers for pollution they caused, the workers decided to burn the residue. Soon after, on November 26, 2020, 250 million workers in a variety of industries, including banking, transportation, telecommunications, and oil and natural gas production, went on strike in what is thought to be the world's largest coordinated strike action ever. Hundreds of thousands of people joined in sympathy with the farmers. Support for the farmer strike has come from all over the world. Protesters marched in the Bay Area on Saturday, December 5, 2020, marching from Oakland to San Francisco and back to demonstrate support with their Indian family members and colleagues. Thousands of demonstrators descended on the Indian High Commission in London the next day, December 6, 2020, in a concerted attempt to protest the law change. The protest just continues to rage, with more and more showing their support. It appears as though the pressure all seemed to get too much for the government, and they eventually sided with the protesters and guaranteed some of their demands in December 2021. Lastly, farmers lose major livestock in Australian flooding. Coming all the way from the record-breaking flood emergency in northern New South Wales and Queensland, heartbreaking accounts of hundreds of cattle being washed away and farmers urgently trying to preserve livestock are emerging. When Paul Weir, a dairy farmer from Tuncaster and Lismore, saw his whole milking herd, around 300 animals, wash away in floodwater on Monday, he believed he'd lost them all. Just to watch them start to swim away, he said about the awful occurrences, "I observed some people just cram themselves into trees. All you can do is wish them well. It was a strange sensation. Seeing it is everyone's worst fear." Some cows have been found alive near Lismore, and Mr. Weir claims he returned to his dairy farm to find up to 100 cows. "Thankfully, much to my surprise, there are a lot more cows here than I expected," he remarked. In other news, beef cattle producers Linda and David Croker, who live upstream of the Richmond River at Geneva, west of Kyogle, have received some positive news. Ms. Croker claimed that while 80% of their 430-acre property was flooded, their beef cow herd remained safe and dry. It was partly thanks to her sister, who set out on a kayak to herd the animals to safety, she said. Unfortunately, the majority of farmers weren't as lucky, as they lost many of their cows or livestock, along with severely damaged crops. And there you have it, everything you need to know about Indian farmers and how they ended their year-long protests late last year and why. This issue stems very far back, almost 100 years, so it's understandable why so many were upset, frankly, over it. Along with this, we also touch on how farms in New South Wales and Queensland, due to flooding, have lost a significant amount of livestock and crops. Make sure to let us know your thoughts down below on today's video. And if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss any of our new and upcoming content. Thanks for watching!